So the card reading that I'm going to do today for you is actually from a different deck. So I'm going to pull the cards from a deck called I Am One Tarot, which is slightly different in its imagery. The images are all like kind of oil paintings, most of them are abstract, and it uses different suits as well. So the reading will be slightly different, and I'm just going to pull the cards and read them as they stand in this deck. I'm not going to compare them to like the traditional Rider-Waite deck or anything. I prefer when I'm doing my decks to use them as standalone decks, like you would do with oracle card decks, because I read intuitively and I read based on the imagery in front of me as opposed to the set rules about stuff. I'm not a big one for keeping to rules when it comes to things like the tarot and like oracle cards, because I think it's entirely subjective, and what your intuition says is more important than what a little booklet says. That said, there is obviously a lot of wisdom and insight in the set meanings for cards, and I don't dismiss that entirely or bypass it, but I think it's like a place to leapfrog from as opposed to a place to get stuck. And with these cards in this deck, because they're so very different, I'm just going to read them as they are within this deck, and based on what cards I pull out and what comes up from them. So the question that I wanted to ask for you today is, how can I get rid of this feeling? Yeah, so it's like a lot of the times we have an emotion stuck inside and we feel a bit icky, a bit unsettled, a bit restless, and yet we can't place what it's about. Yeah, we can't put our finger on it and go, oh, that's because, you know, I'm feeling sad today, and I'm feeling sad because I miss my best friend because I haven't seen her in like 2 months, or I'm feeling angry today because last night I had a difficult conversation with my mother, and, you know, even though time has passed and I've been, you know, I've done other things and slept and well and everything, it's still in me today because it was unresolved. Yeah, so it's like it's that feeling. Yeah, it's when you've got a feeling inside and you're not necessarily able to place what it's about. So I'm going to do a reading for that, and like how can I release this feeling? Yeah, how can I move through this feeling? How can I you know, bring closure to it and give myself catharsis? So I'm just going to shuffle the cards, pull a card, maybe two, depending on what comes up, how I feel, and then we'll do the reading from there. Okay, I'm just shuffling the cards now. Asking, how can I release this feeling? This feeling that's stuck inside. Okay, I'm just taking the card out. Okay, so the card that came out is the 3 pair of tears. Yeah, so it's kind of a bit different, and the card's a bit different, not what we're used to maybe. The imagery is very different to what you might be used to, especially if you haven't seen this deck before. It's a very abstract deck. It's a very bright, powerful deck. The cards are really lovely actually. They're like quite small. They're narrower than most of my other decks, and they're really smooth, so the deck shuffles really, really beautifully. And I randomly found this deck online, just while I was like kind of like searching the internet looking for card decks, actually, as you do. And I really like the the creator's website. You know, she's a therapist. I think she's a psychologist actually, or a psychiatrist or something, and she uses these cards in her work with her clients. And she wanted to create the cards to go with her sessions, and then she sells them as well. And that really appealed to me because it was like they were coming from a really authentic place. So this card, and the cards are all in different languages too, so they're in Spanish and they're in French as well. So if we're looking at the card, this card's very green. Yeah, there's lots of green in this card. There's green in the background of the card, and there's green in the imagery of the card. There's also yellow and there's red. And it kind of looks like the three pears almost look like liquid. So they look like tears, they look like water, they look like sperm, you know, like little baby sperm, or a little baby kind of like animated cartoony type fish, and they're kind of falling into this simmering fire almost at the bottom. Yeah, it looks like a fire, red and yellow fire made up of emotion, of anger, and you know, of the emotion that gets stuck in the tummy. Yeah, where we like harbor our emotions when we're upset, when we're angry, you know, when we've got grief, when we've got resentment, when we've got worry, fear, you know, all that gets stuck in the stomach a lot of the time, in the solar plexus. And so, you know, this card is kind of like saying that, you know, this feeling that you're feeling is stuck in your tummy. It's a bad feeling in your tummy, and it's partly to do with your roots. Yeah, but the red, it's like there's anger down in your roots. You're not feeling grounded. You're not feeling connected. You feel like you've been disempowered. You know, that kind of like the strength within your core is being challenged right now, by some situation, by some circumstance, and that's why you've got this icky feeling. And these three tears are like, this is the extent of your upset. Yeah, it's like there are 3 tears. Yeah, so it's not 1 tear, which would be like a minor little upset, but it's not like 10 tears, which would be a major upset. It's like 3 tears. Yeah, so it's like, you know, on a scale of 1 to 10, how bad are you feeling today? Well, you're feeling number 3. So it could be worse, but it's just like this. It's there, and it's enough that it's causing you to feel unhappy and unsettled, and so you can't relax and you can't just chill out and do whatever you want to do or distract yourself with something. It's there, you know, even if you kind of like just sit down and watch a movie, it's still there. It's still going to bug you, and maybe you'll forget about it while you're watching the movie, but afterwards it's just going to come back and bite you again, and maybe it's going to come out and explode over other people because you just want to get it out of you. And so the card is basically saying that the way through this emotion that you're carrying right now, yeah, is through fantasy. Yeah, the words on the card say, I am fantasy. So you need to imagine, yeah, in like a meditation kind of type setting. Yeah, so like a kind of, if you go, close your eyes, go into meditation and do a guided visualization with yourself. You need to connect in that meditation to the emotion inside. Yeah, try and sense it, feel it, find it, communicate with it, reach out to it, talk to it, ask it to speak to you, ask it to open up to you and reveal what it is to you, and try and visualize it like one of these little tears. Yeah, so find the first one wherever it is inside, make it friendly, you know, give it like 2 cute little eyes, a cute little mouth, you know, like a Disney animated cartoon type of thing. and you know, maybe like a little fish, an animated fish or something. Find it and ask it what it needs from you, how you can help it to move free, move past where it is right now, yeah, which is stuck inside of you. And then once you've done that, then go find the other one, and then find the other one, and collect them up. And collect them up and take them into your heart center. And then fill your heart center up with love, yeah. So maybe when you're in your heart center, in a kind of like in a guided visualization, so visualize this in fantasy, yeah, I am fantasy. So fantasizing your heart center with these three little kind of like spermy fish inside your heart center. And then make the rest of that space this beautiful rose garden, yeah, or make the kind of like the background all covered in rose petals or something, yeah, or maybe it's a pink rose quartz cave, but just make it all pink, all beautiful, all loving. And if pink's not your colour, make it whatever colour is your colour, yeah, but just make it this beautiful, loving cave of a heart centre, and just send love to those emotions, to those feelings, and see what happens. And then how do I move forwards from here onwards? I'm going to pull one more card out of the deck, and that card is this chap. This chap, or it's a woman. This woman, that's a woman, that's good. This woman is the 7, the victorious one. She looks pretty powerful, pretty happy with herself. She has like a lioness by her side. She's wearing a beautiful kind of like flowy white robe. She has a crown on her head, although it looks a bit thorn-like, so it's almost like the crucifixion. She has like these red flowers in her hands, but it also looks like she has cuts on her hands. In the background there's a chariot. Also to her left is a darker beast as well. And then to our left, her right, is like this kind of like veil. There's a crow in the sky above her head, and the crow's claws look like barbed wire or arrows, and there's a sun right in the center above her head that looks a bit like a halo too. So this picture looks very, very religious, yeah. It also looks like the Chariot card. So the important thing here is, okay, so the energy says that victorious, yeah, so you are victorious in this situation, and overcoming this situation, yeah, in dealing with these tears, this sorrow, you are victorious. And 7 is like a magic number. 7 is like kind of like the heaven sent number, yeah, so it's very powerful, very magical. And 3 is about change, and it's also you know, 3 is like about relationships, and like sometimes 3 is a crowd, so it forces change, because, you know, 1 is an individual journey, 2 is a partnership, 3 may or may not work, so it could be uncomfortable, and it could force one of those people out onto their own, onto a soul journey, because, you know, the balance is off. So we see this woman here who looks a bit like Jesus, a female version of Jesus. She looks like she's been massively challenged. You know, she has this dark crow above her head, yeah, so it's almost like her shadow has risen up and is just sitting on top of her head, or she's being like haunted by some annoying flying thing, which could be the problem, yeah, it's like this buzzing, fluttering around her head, being chased by a dark cloud or a shadow. And so she's been suffering a lot, and she's had to fight a big battle, in order to become victorious and get where she is. And on the way, she's been injured, yeah, so she's bleeding from her arm. And it looks like her wounds have transformed her. So at the end of her arm, the cut arm where it's bleeding, instead of a hand, we see a bunch of flowers, yeah, red flowers. So it's like her blood has watered the ground and these beautiful flowers have bloomed, yeah. So her blood has kind of made the soil beneath her fertile, and then it has been able to grow stuff, yeah, gifts for her. So she's walking and she's holding on to these two beasts, yeah. And one looks like a gentle but powerful but loving and wise lioness, and the other one looks like, this kind of scary black cat-like thing, a bit like the Hound from the Hound of Baskerville's kind of animal, really. And she's got her hand on both of them, yeah. So she's walking with them both by her side. She hasn't rejected them; they're there on the right hand, like saying, like, I sit at the right hand of God, almost. It's like these animals sit at the right hand of her, who is essentially in here God. So she's not rejecting the darkness or the shadow or the pain. It's there, she's allowing it, but she's tamed it because it's walking beside her, so it's like it's her friend. It's obedient to her. In the background, it looks like there's been a really big battle. Looks like lots of blood has been shed. Looks like she's lost her cart. And she's been forced to kind of like walk out alone, but she's covered in this like kind of like flowing blue scarf like around her neck and trailing down. So it's like through going through this battle, she has found her voice, she has found her power, and she has emerged from the darkness. Yeah, it's almost like she's walking out of apocalypse. Yeah, it's like the end of the world is as she knew it. It's like life as she knew it is behind her, and it's all, there's devastation. Yeah, it's like everything is just nothing that was before exists. And she's walking off into a brave new world. And the answer here is, I am self-mastery. So it's like, in order to, and this reading has gone a bit deeper, obviously, than the initial question. The initial question was, how can I get rid of this icky feeling? Well, obviously this icky feeling that we're talking about here isn't a little icky feeling, it's a big icky feeling. It's like a, it might only be presenting as a number 3 on a scale of like 1 to 10, but it's something that, it's not trivial, and it's not just about not seeing your friend for 2 weeks or having a disagreement with your mother on the phone. It's about something much bigger than that, something that is like a core wound, so something from your past, yeah, from your childhood, or from one of your first intimate relationships, or maybe even from a past life, or it could be inherited generational stuff. Yeah, we've all got that stuff, all of us. So the trigger in the right now, which might be the not seeing your best friend or arguing with your mother, that's the superficial trigger. Yeah, it's presenting now as that on the surface, but you're feeling overly emotional about that thing. Yeah, and maybe it's because having a disagreement with your mother triggers your sense of abandonment from childhood, and therefore even though your relationship with her now is kind of like improved, you still got all of that shit that you haven't dealt with in the past. Or maybe not seeing your friend for 2 weeks is, making you feel, you feel lonely inside and empty, and you need kind of intimacy and communication and connection with another woman or man, if you're a man, or if your friend's a man. But you just need that bond, yeah, that kind of intimate bond that we can only have in close friendships. And you're not getting it where you are right now. And so you think it's just about the friend, but actually it's about the fact that you have this, this feeling of loneliness always stuck inside you, of like there's an empty part in your heart that never feels filled, that never feels comforted, that nothing can reach, and you're just feeling a bit icky about that today, and you're blaming it on not having had enough social interaction, whereas actually really it's about the part of you that has been neglected or disowned, and that's more to do with your relationship with yourself, and how as a result of maybe not having adequate parenting, or not having strong enough bonds when you were younger in those core relationships, you now don't know how to mother yourself, to parent yourself, to nurture yourself, to comfort yourself, and therefore you're like, you need somebody else to do that for you. So could be big stuff here. Sorry, but this card is kind of saying it's big stuff, but if you do the work, and if you really send love to that place, that space, you listen to it, you visualize in fantasy, you can, with the power of your love, focusing on that hurt space, with the power of your presence and willingness to listen and hold space, because there is so much power in just simply being still and silent and listening to what that part of you wants to say, without interrupting, without trying to pacify it, without trying to shush it so that it doesn't feel so uncomfortable or intense. That there's so much healing, but that power within that, just that act alone, and then that will enable you to rise up and become victorious. And maybe you need to get external help and talk to somebody like a therapist, and get a guide to navigate you through this time, and to hold space for you, and to hold you accountable, and to act as a mirror to reflect back to you your feelings and your journey, and then you can get the resolution you need. So that's kind of like the long-term goal, is like really, really looking at it and really facing that kind of battleground that you've got lying behind you in your past that kind of needs tidying up. But in the meantime, you can do this work on your own, and there is great power in that. I hope that was useful to you. And keep checking back for more videos, more readings. Send me in a question if you have a question that you would like me to ask. I'd happily do a reading for you, and post the video publicly. If you would like a private reading, obviously contact me via my website, lemonrosepetals.com. You can also find me on Facebook and on Instagram, and just look up Lemon Rose Petals or look up Rebecca Atherton, and I should pop up under either of those. Okay, I will look forward to seeing you next time.